Hello folks, we're going to take a look at how to execute a maneuver I call the Smuggler's Landing in Elite Dangerous. That's when you need to do a fast landing without getting scanned because you're carrying illegal cargo or illegal passengers or something of the like. So I'll show it to you twice, once with explanations embedded in, and then we'll go back and we'll look at the whole thing real time so you can get an idea for how quickly you have to do all this. So first things first, you're going to want to line up with the station's mail slot as best as you can at about 8 kilometers out. This is very important because it's going to make it much easier for you to get in because we're going to be going in full throttle. So I'm not really showing you how to line up because that's kind of boring, but just get there pointed at the station at about 8 kilometers out and be ready to go. So now that we've made our final adjustments, we're going to go to full throttle. Once we go to full throttle, things are going to happen pretty fast, so we'll stop and pause and talk you through it. Basically, as soon as we get within range to request docking, we're going to request docking and immediately turn on our silent running so we don't get scanned. Basically, while we're out here past docking request range, we don't have to worry about getting scanned. Once we get in there, we have to worry about getting scanned. We don't want to get scanned because that's the entire point of this exercise. Now here you see I'm fumbling a little bit with the controls. You got to be able to do this quickly. I'm not actually carrying illegal cargo, but I put myself at a big risk of getting scanned here. Just because of how long it took me to get to this menu. So you're going to want to practice this. You want to make sure you select your target and request docking as quickly as possible. I took a few seconds too long. You can probably get away with it, but you may not.
Notice to all vessels. Please beware, heavy traffic reported.
So right here, I just turned on silent running. You can see the words rigged for silent running in the upper right. All I did was I held triangle and hit L2 if you're using a PS4 controller. If it's PC, then it's mapped to whatever you've got it mapped to on PC. That little blurb in the top right is the only thing you'll see that indicates it. You won't really get any other visual cue. Right now, your heat vents are closed, so you're off people's scanners, but you will be building up heat quickly, which is, again, why we're going in as fast as possible.
Permission granted. Set down on landing pad 4-3.
So before we actually enter the slot, you should note, you heard the warning on the audio that shields are down. Silent running does turn off your shields, so you have to be very careful and very precise about getting in there. As if you bump the walls, you're going to take damage. Now this is the fun part. We're coming in really fast. We made it through the slot. Now we've got to slow down before we hit that back wall and hopefully not hit the boost button, which would be very bad, especially with no shields on. So if you'll notice on the bottom right, I've both extended my landing gear and opened my cargo hatch as soon as I went through the slot before I do anything else. And when the video clip continues, you'll see I'm going to reverse thrust. And I'm going to do that until I come to a stop and then go back to zero thrust. Here again, I do a couple of quick actions to close this out. As I coast to a stop, I hit my triangle L2 combo to turn off silent running so I don't burn up and take heat damage. And I've come to a stop, so I make sure I zero out my throttle so I don't back up through the slot. And then from here on out, it's a normal landing. Just find your pad and come in for a landing.
Landing gear deployed.
Now you may be wondering, why did I drop my cargo scoop and drop my landing gear? Well, those two things actually help slow you down because they increase your drag. So that combined with the reverse thrust makes you brake really fast, so you don't have to worry about overshooting your target and hitting the back wall. Now, before I actually come in and touch down, you may notice that I made a minor mistake here. If you notice down at the bottom right, I left my cargo scoop open. That's okay, you can still land with it, but remember my shields are still down. They haven't fully charged because I'm only at 1 pip shields now. So that left me open. I could scrape the cargo scoop on the landing a little bit and take a minor amount of hull damage, which you're about to see does actually happen. When I did go back and repair that, it was only a few credits, so it's not really a big deal. But you know, if you want to be cautious, make sure you close that cargo scoop, or just kind of take it slow until your shields charge, and maybe put a few pips to shield on the way.
Hull integrity compromised. Cargo scoop defective. Shields online.
And right about here is where I figured out that, oh yeah, I left my cargo scoop open, and coincidentally, just as I landed, my shields came back online. So if I had slowed down a few more seconds, I would have been okay. Anyway, that's the basically the whole landing procedure right there.
Landing complete. Systems offline. Enjoy your stay, Commander. Your comfort is our top priority.
So okay, so that's basically the whole run with stops and pauses for explanations. We'll take a look at the step-by-step instructions real quick, and then I'll go back and show you the whole clip again without the stops, so you can get a feel for how fast it is. And keep in mind that I was actually a little slow on some of these things. You can do it faster once you practice. So again, step by step. First, line up with a mail stop about 8 kilometers out. Then go full throttle. Request docking and turn on silent running as quickly as possible. Get through the mail slot. Drop gear, open cargo scoop, full reverse until you zero out. Turn your silent running off, and then come in for your normal landing. Don't forget to shut your cargo scoop or let your shields charge. Again, it's easier to do with small and medium ships. If you're using a large ship, you probably want to carry a heat sink and drop it at some point. Don't forget that your shields are off, so don't be afraid to break off and just retry if you think you're going to crash. And I do recommend practicing this, like get a sidewinder or just practice the whole sequence of events in empty space before you do it. So let's take a look at how fast the whole sequence goes here. And again, keep in mind, I could have done this faster and more efficiently. I did open myself up for a few seconds of possibly getting scanned. But here's how we go. You'll see I start right around when the throttle goes up. Here we go.
Permission granted. Set down on landing pad 4-3.
Cargo scoop deployed.
So once again, this whole sequence happens pretty fast, but it's definitely something you can practice your way to perfection. And again, I was slow on the uptake. The hardest part, I think, is getting used to requesting docking quickly. You do have to not fumble around the menus as much as I did in order to do it efficiently. You do get a few seconds grace there, but if somebody happens to scan you in that period, you're shot. Again, I hope this was helpful and kind of explains how to do it. This is what I call the smuggler's landing. Some people call it just coming in hot. Some people will call it a silent running landing. Whatever you call it, this is how you get into a station without getting scanned if you're carrying illegal cargo, or passengers that don't want to be scanned, or if they're criminals, or if they're just listed in the mission as secretive. And you'll get better profits that way. You won't have to worry about a passenger bailing out on you as you're making your landing because they didn't like the fact that you got scanned. Hope this helps. Again, practice in a cheap ship that you don't have to worry about rebuying, or practice in empty space until you get the sequence down, and you should be able to execute this in no time. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative and got some good use out of it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, or if you have any suggestions for future videos. And as always, subscribe to the channel if you want to show some support for what I'm doing here, and I'll see you out in the black.